My name's David Lim. I'm a doctoral researcher at the University of Reading. I went back into education in 2006, 2007, and I completed a master's degree in renewable energy engineering. I've really wanted to get to the bottom of this issue as a researcher. As some of you may know, there's a lot of disinformation out there regarding this subject. In 2010, I did some work for the Royal Academy of Engineering, and I was fortunate enough to speak abroad at some conferences, and this has to be, I can honestly say this, one of the hardest things to put together, one of the hardest talks, not least because it's a controversial subject, and also it's not my area of expertise. I have looked at this to a point though where I'm sufficient and comfortable enough to speak to you about what I've found, so I hope you will glean something from this. Geoengineering affects everybody, so increases in extreme weather, food prices and illness, and this is a biggie. 800,000 dementia sufferers in the UK at the moment, and that's expected to double, just over double actually, to 1.7 million in the next 40 years. Alzheimer's, I think, speaks for itself, and again, childhood autism is increasing significantly. So extreme weather events are increasing because our weather is being manipulated. Food prices are increasing because crop production can be controlled, and illness is increasing because geoengineering chemicals are toxic. Weather modification goes way back. Earliest references I found are 1891. Vincent Schaefer looked into cloud seeding technologies and progressed it hugely by 1946. Military operations. The Guardian broke this in 2002. The headline reads, "Millions were in germ war tests." The Ministry of Defence turned large parts of the country into a giant laboratory to conduct a series of secret germ warfare tests on the public. In 2005, NASA came out with a document differentiating the types of trails. Now, they have changed slightly on their definition of this, but it's just to illustrate that NASA themselves are making a differentiation. The word chemtrail, if anyone says to you, it's a made-up word or whatever, US Congress made up the term chemtrail initially. House Bill 2977, the Space Preservation Act 2001, page 5, line 15, it's there. It's there under exotic weapons, exotic weapon systems, chemtrails. And these things are about 2 or 3 times the area of a football field. And they beam into the ionosphere between 1 to 3.5 billion watts of radio energy. So what this does, it changes the characteristics of the ionosphere. So if you can imagine like a heat column going up there. And as many of you might know, the jet streams, there are 3 major jet streams that go around the planet. And when the jet stream comes into contact or nears this rush of heat, it has to go either way. It doesn't like going through it, so it has to go round. And that's how you can start to push the jet streams north or south. And when the radio energy hits clouds, these are the type of cloud conditions that it makes. So it's like a rippling, like a mackerelling, or like a corrugated effect. Here's one with a chemtrail running through it. This one's kind of interesting. Very pillowy-like clouds with a definite edge. If I was doing a modelling simulation of this cloud using computational fluid dynamics, you would not have this phenomena occurring unless that there was an external stimuli. Arching effect. It doesn't happen in a liquid unless there's something making it. Punch hole cloud. So again, you see the rippling effects with this big hole in the middle. Okay, now I'm going to move on to some impact, talk about the impacts of geoengineering. So everyone's saying, what's in these aerosols? What's being sprayed? The Royal Society say we're spraying, or thinking about spraying, sulfur. In total, 49 different chemicals have been reported. Okay, there are 3 other class of particulates that are being found. Polymer nanofibers, desiccated erythrocytes, and erythrocytes are freeze-dried red blood cells, mold spores and fungus. This is what we're finding. Most of the tests so far, no aluminium is meant to be found in rain really. It just doesn't, it's not naturally occurring. So normal rain levels are between 0 to 0.5 micrograms per litre. And in the red, you see some quite startling results. Barium also. So in Lincolnshire, we had 70 micrograms. In Portsmouth, there was 350 micrograms reported. Drinking water again, safe levels, 0.05 milligrams per litre, or 50 micrograms per litre. This is a test result from, I think this is a New Zealand one. So 0.19 micrograms per litre on the upper end of the limit. I think it speaks for itself, really. Okay, this is the big one. Why? Everybody's asking, why are they doing this? Why? Why would the government be doing this to us? So, I believe that the sales pitch to us is, due to man-made global warming, the planet needs to be cooled. That's what the IPCC are saying, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They're saying we need excess cloud cover to bounce the sunlight redirected out back into space. Climate change science isn't settled. And this is where I've jumped into it from my research, from looking at the IPCC models with my mathematical modelling of domestic energy use. The IPCC is a kind of political organisation. It's not scientific. And this is the big risk, when you start marrying political and academic spheres, when policy is funding academia, you're going to get political-driven outcomes. You can't access the original data from the IPCC meteorological climate models. It's lost, it's gone missing. We've had ClimateGate 1 with the hacked emails, and there was a ClimateGate 2 actually. I don't know if many of you know about that. So for me, it doesn't fit. Something doesn't feel right. It's not going right. This is a report by the Club of Rome. It came out in 1991, and if you haven't come across this, it's quite an interesting read. It's called The First Global Revolution, and the UN think tank was tasked with the idea of coming up with various schemes to unite humanity, basically. It came up with it had other aims and objectives as well. Depopulation was another one. On page 75, under the heading, The Common Enemy of Humanity is Man, quote, "In searching for a common enemy against whom we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like, would fit the bill." Some of you have come across this. And then it goes on to say that all of these are kind of human-induced, therefore humanity itself is its own enemy. Social control mechanism. So when you can control the weather, you can put upon society some very rigid social controls. Control food supply and cost. So weather modification is an industry in its own right. If you have enough money, you can actually pay weather modification company in the States to fly over your town, your county or your state to modify the weather. Modify it to create extreme weather. You can create floods, droughts, storms, hurricanes. Military can now steer hurricanes, excess snow. So you can manipulate public opinion, you can convince people of climate change, and if you can do that, you can impose carbon tax. Telegraph, May 2011, it reads, Mohammed Ahmadinejad says, Europe stealing Iran's rain. And it goes on to say, he quotes, it says, according to reports on climate, whose accuracy has been verified, European countries are using special equipment to force clouds to dump. And he's talking about water. The special equipment that he's alluding to is the HARP stuff, is the scalar weaponry. HARP can create earthquakes and tsunamis. So in this patent 5003-186, it talks about adding tiny particles to fuel of jetliners, being aluminium oxide, thorium oxide, and it talks about the size of them being 10 to 100 microns. You'd expect to find academic studies, and again, there are many. And the good news is this. You hear people go, yeah, but what can we do? So the good news of this is they acknowledge that we do have some kind of leverage if we take the right channels, the right approach, we talk to people, we inform people the correct way. And the first step is, as I said, none of this is kind of any true value unless you look into it yourself to a degree. I'm not asking you to believe me.